Sorry, that was really mean-spirited.
Wow,
If you want to cut that out, you have every right to.
No, I'm going to leave that in there.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that.
No, I'm leaving it in there.
I don't like that I did that.
I'm leaving it in there. Welcome back or welcome to. This is your first time to Pro and Noob, the only anime podcast online with two white guys. So, yeah, you chuckle.
Stealing the some more news. Welcome to Even More News, the first and only news podcast.
I've never seen that in my life, so I wouldn't.
Oh, dude, you'd love that channel.
Anyway, Mitch 692, Jarod from the Nerd Academy podcast. I take him through the animals because he's a Star Wars fan. He's not cultured in the slightest. You can't even do trivia, right, Jarod? Don't give me that look.
Okay.
Don't give me that look.
Listen,
as you can tell, but I'm not going to let him talk. Shush. As the thumbnail suggests, we are doing DanDaDan. We are doing the current series for a change. One that is fun. Because Jarod needs fun in his life now.
I do.
Evangelion and Bebop.
I need a chaser. I was not expecting Bebop to exact such a heavy emotional toll.
All right, Thanos. All right.
Like, where the fuck is my Infinity Gauntlet at? Hold on. It's too far away for me to do a bit now.
But yeah, so nice and current.
Yeah.
It's currently only 190 something chapters in, which sounds a lot. So I think it started in 2021. I could be wrong on that one.
Okay.
First season was last year. Though I'm pretty certain it's a core. It's only half of season one, and what's coming up in July is the second half. But I'm getting confused with the anime terms at the minute because it was season, then it wasn't season. Now it's cores, now it's not cores. Who knows? Anyway, doesn't matter. We are watching DanDaDan, and we're going to start off with episode 1. But first, is there anything you'd like to know going in?
Is there anything I'd like to know going in? I don't know. I truly don't know what to expect. Like in terms of like me Googling literally just the name of the show and going, oh yeah, this. You know, like we can't see it. Mitch is covering this person up, but like this dude with the toothy mask,
you all know who it is. No.
There's a dude with a toothy mask. That's all I know. Like the more and more I'm looking at our background, the more and more I'm confused. I truly do not know what we're getting into this time around. Like this is, funnily enough, even though this is more current and more modern, I have less of a like cultural osmosis with this than I did with Evangelion and Cowboy Bebop and like Princess Mononoke. You know, whereas like, oh yeah, like I got vibes. You know, it was like Evangelion. There's robots and monsters, I think, and people talk about it as like a crown jewel of anime, like culturally. Cowboy Bebop, same thing. It's like it's one of those like baby's first anime. Like it shows you what the art form is capable of beyond just like, you know, that's kind of like the example people give and like how iconic the music is for Bebop. You know, Princess Mononoke, that one was weird for me just because like tonally and in terms of vibes, it felt familiar because I know, you know, to come back to Star Wars land, because apparently I'm not cultured, because of how much Dave Filoni loves Princess Mononoke and how much like Mononoke has bled into Ahsoka specifically. That tonally felt more at home in a weird way, even though I thought that movie was a little long in the tooth.
Bad take.
I know. It's a controversial take, Mitch. Still thought it was incredible. That was still a 5-star movie. I was just like, oh man, like this feels really long. But yeah, I have no fucking clue. Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest do I know what we're getting into.
Good. I'm going to make an assumption here that you've heard the intro or at least parts of it.
Maybe. I don't know.
No, you've.
But that is But that has been a thing with all three of our full series season discussions that I will go, oh, hey, I recognize this music.
I think you're going to have that again. I think you're going to have that again.
Okay.
I can't remember if it actually won Song of the Year at the Dumb Fuck Crunchyroll Awards. Fucking Solo Leveling.
Fuck Crunchyroll.
Yeah. They gave like the discount Dragon Ball Z as anime of the year, and no.
I'm just having so much fun imagining that being the full name of the ceremony. Just welcome everyone to the whatever annual DFCR Awards.
It might as well be. I think it was their first one as well, which makes it even better. It's like, I'm never paying attention to you ever again. No, ever. Disavow. And it's Sony as well. It makes it even worse. But anyway. Is there anything you'd like to know going in?
This is one of those situations. I don't know what to. Even if I had questions, I don't know what to ask.
That's fair.
This isn't like a. I have a little bit of a familiarity, cultural osmosis. I've seen an episode. Like I got nothing. Again, guy with a toothy mask. That's all I got. Like, I don't know if this is going to be any type of like. How do I put this? Fantasy sci-fi in the way that like most anime involves powered people, or like a lot of like action anime involves powered people. Like I'm assuming there's some type of like poweredness here. I can't imagine somebody wearing a mask like that and them not having some type of power to them. That'd be wild.
I mean, that'd be anime, right? Yeah.
But I'm here for it. But yeah, like I said, I have no idea what to expect.
Well, shall we just get into it then?
I think we shall.
We shall. Cool. Well, we're going to go to episode 1 right now. So, bye.
Be right back.
We are back. I'm going to make a slight correction. I said this got Song of the Year at the Crunchyroll Dumbfuck Anime Awards. It did not. It was, in fact, Creepy Nuts' other song that won it.
I'm sorry. What's the name of the band?
Creepy Nuts.
Not what I heard. Okay.
What did you hear?
Creepy Nazi.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that's a hell of a name.
When that Creepy Nuts.
Creepy Nuts. Great way to describe the episode. Creepy and nuts.
So, where do we stand?
We will address.
Because I was laughing throughout this entire thing, by the way.
Why? Because you immediately went, "Oh no!"
I knew exactly your reaction to it anyway, and just watching it at the point I know you're watching it, it just made me chuckle even more. Like, he's here.
We'll wait to address that here in a second, because my take might be a little bit more nuanced than you're anticipating. I, again, having no idea where to begin.
Begin with how much of a banger that intro is.
Well, having no idea what to expect from the show is what I meant. No, that intro, holy shit. Whoa.
How it didn't win, I don't know.
I'm like this, like, it's like almost like a neo-funk hip-hop.
It's like 8 different genres in one. I don't know how they did
it. I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, yeah, let's go. Oh, yeah, this is my shit. So, yeah, that was remarkable. I really love how every time we do a season of this show that ends in me feeling emotionally taxed, Mitch goes, let's throw the boy a bone. The first time, we did a little detour into Star Wars land. And the second time, Mitch said, hey, Jarod doesn't know that this show is low-key super fucking pilled. And this show has like some like conspiracy supernatural shit going on. So imagine my surprise when one of the main characters freaks out and screams the words Operation Pegasus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yes. It began with like weird neo soul, neo funk, hip hop hybrid. And what might be the main character of the show is like pilled to the gills. Fuck yeah. Like I am fully ready to do some conspiracy deep dives to refresh myself on some of this stuff. Cause like because I was never a big aliens guy. I was never a big, because for those of you at home, I can't believe we have made it this far into pro and noob, and I have not I've not had to give the disclaimer. I know a lot about conspiracy culture talk yet.
No, you have.
Have I?
Certainly did it, Evangelion.
I think I just said conspiracy shit.
Hey, maybe.
As a refresher, at least, I am a very big appreciator at a distance of like conspiracy culture. I find it fascinating. I find it compelling. I listen to and keep up with a lot of people who have made it their career monitoring these communities. I've brought up Knowledge Fight. You know, I think it's a pretty common fact that like I know way too much about Alex Jones because I think Dan Friesen of Knowledge Fight is one of the most brilliant. He may not call himself this, but journalists of our time, as he has dedicated his entire life to debunking the complete works of Alex Emmerich Jones. And
you missed out on Ozempic.
Huh?
You missed out on Ozempic.
He vehemently claims he's not on Ozempic.
I mean, Musk says he's not on fucking ketamine. But
listen, here's what I will say. I do think Alex Jones is taking some type of weight loss aid. He also is very much on the record of having quit drinking. And it shows. Like, that's been like a whole thing on Knowledge Fight, is Dan and Jordan going, we can tell Alex isn't drinking and it's kind of making the show boring. Which is kind of fucked up to say, but it's true. So, so I'll get, at the very least, he cut all of the vodka and whiskey he was drinking all the time out of his diet. So that speaks to something probably for his weight loss as well. But he claims he's not on Ozempic. I don't necessarily believe him. But all of that to say, the Alex Jones QAnon pantheon is something that has always fascinated me. I've always found those like the right wing version of conspiracy culture very fascinating. And by virtue of that, you know, I've dabbled a little bit here and there in like the alien stuff. It's not something I've ever been super fascinated by, just because, quite frankly, a bunch of biblical literalists who think that like revelation is going to be brought about by the guy who was the host of The Apprentice is way funnier and more interesting to me than, you know, somebody who was like on shrooms and went, I see an airplane, that's an alien. That's just me. But I know my buzzwords, I know my terms, and hearing Ken, right? That's his name?
Ken Takakura, yeah.
Ken Takakura. Hearing him do the whole Project Pegasus, it was like, oh, okay. I was like, you have my attention. You know, you had my attention at that funky ass theme song. You captured my interest when I heard the kids start talking about conspiracy bullshit. So that was cool. That was fun. I was already hooked. This like conceit of from the gate, it is not just superpowers and sci-fi. It is like, that is just the supernatural is on the table. Like it went from like, I don't know what to expect because there's superpowers and you can dissect if that's fantasy or science fiction, to this like X-Files-esque. It's aliens and ghosts and goblins and demons and ghouls and like all of the shit that isn't real is very, pardon my hiccups, very, very fucking real. And that as a premise, I think, is really fun because Evangelion, Magic Eva Zeus notwithstanding, is pretty hard sci-fi. It's pretty hard sci-fi insofar as it's all a lot of like gobbledygook, and it's a lot of like, things that could be done as magic and like played as magical, but there's always a kind of like ridiculous, insane scientific justification for the shit happening in Evangelion. Cowboy Bebop was sci-fi in the same way that you can get away with calling Star Wars sci-fi. Where there are spaceships and special technology, and that's about where the sci-fi ends.
It's more of a Western than anything else.
Yeah, it's a space Western, and which again has a lot of sci-fi elements, but like I would say Bebop stops shorter of traditional sci-fi than Star Wars does. There aren't any fucking aliens, and like the highfalutin technology stops pretty hard at space travel. Beyond that, there aren't any like, there's a really real space weaponry, no aliens, no nothing like that. So going into this, I was expecting that weird sci-fi fantasy hybrid that you get from most, like, again, superhero material.
Yeah.
And I'm coming back to that as a point of reference simply because I was like, the vibe I'm getting is kid with powers. That was the vibe I just, again, from a quick Google search to see that this existed. I didn't read anything, just said, oh, this exists. And to pull up the image we're using as the background, that is all I got. I feel like this is a teenager with superpowers.
Yeah.
Fully based on vibes. What I wasn't expecting, again, was X-Files. It's aliens and monsters and demons and ghosts and ghouls and goblins. So that excited the hell out of me. That this is already so different in like presentation. I found very exciting and very thrilling. Despite the, kind of par for the course anime overacting, I really like the performances so far.
Good. You should.
It's like, again, that's just one of those things that's always going to be hard for me is I just, it's the over explaining of like every single thought somebody's having.
The anime speak. Yeah.
Anime speak is really difficult for me sometimes. Anime overacting is difficult for me sometimes. But, if I turn on a Quentin Tarantino movie and I get angry about feet and blood, I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going in knowing there's going to be feet and blood, I need to accept feet and blood at the door. So like it's one of those things where it's like anime as an art form, I can't even call it a genre, but like, this genre of anime, this like shonen action adventure shit. I understand that is par for the course. So it is a feature I dislike. I'm not going to grade it as though it is a bug that should be altered. I understand that it is part of the sauce, just not my favorite ingredient.
It's fair.
All of that said,
we're in the fun part now.
Oh, what? The teenager in her underwear was the fun part for you, Mitch?
I'm not an
Mitch
alien.
Not like us. Mitch not like us.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry, that was really mean-spirited.
Wow.
If you want to cut that out, you have every right to.
No, I'm going to leave that in there.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that.
I'm leaving it in there.
I don't like that.
I'm leaving it in there. No.
There's your intro for the episode. Bitch
Yeah, it's true.
I'm so sorry. Man, okay, so here's my thing. I don't like it. I really fucking don't get why we can't do this art form without like just
here's
not
the thing.
Even hypersexualizing, ultra sexualizing fucking teenagers.
I disagree with that. There was nothing about that scene that was ultra sexualizing.
Hold on, let me cook. However, the ground.
This has been a really big topic for this show, but yeah.
Huh?
This has been a really big topic for this show.
Interesting.
Just so, yeah.
The ground I will cede, however, is I'm willing to let the show cook because I think there might be more metaphor here than there typically is with other weird fan service. Now, the reason why I do feel comfortable saying ultra sexualized, because I'm going to kind of like go back and forth here on like both of those, but come down on the opinion I've maintained since watching the first episode. We have this teenage girl in her underwear strapped to this thing. That in and of itself, the way she's posed, the way she's positioned, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It also comes off the heels of Ken. And what's the girl's name again?
Momo.
Momo?
Momo, yeah.
Like Mojo Jojo, but Momo?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have Momo in this position here, and that follows on the heels of Ken having his moment with Turbo Granny.
Yeah.
Where the first words we hear supernatural beings speak is, I'm going to suck your dong off. And I'm like, wow.
Gobble. I'll let you suckle my teats, were the first words she said.
My teats if you let me gobble that dong. So I'm
Fun
like,
fact,
okay.
Voiced by Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers.
That's fucking awesome. That's just funny.
In the Japanese version, it's Luffy.
That is deeply funny.
And it literally is just Luffy's voice.
That's like, what's a good comparison? Have you ever seen the clip? I'm hoping somebody who watches this show knows what I'm talking about. And if you don't, go pull it up. Do you know the show Power? I think it's on Stars or Showtime. It's like 50 Cent's TV show. I think it literally just ended a year or two ago. Kendrick Lamar has this hilarious cameo in the show where he's playing a like drug-addled homeless person.
Yeah. Who's
just kind of like speaking super phonetically. And and I cannot repeat a single word that he said in that scene. But you know, he like
why not, Jarod?
Like, well, so 50 Cent, I think he walks out of a convenience store. And he's coming out of the store, and then like the camera does like a fucking like vertigo zoom on homeless Kendrick, right? And Kendrick like spots 50 Cent down the block, and he like rushes him down. He's like, my neighbor, my neighbor, my neighbor, my neighbor, my neighbor. And he says it like 8 times faster. And he just like starts like rattling off all these like weird little factoids, and he's like talking about 50 Cent's leather jacket. And he's like, just diarrhea of the mouth, super frantic, super frenetic. It's one of the funniest clips I've ever seen from a television show. I think Luffy playing I'll let you suck my tits if you let me gobble that dong is like Robert Downey Jr. playing the Kendrick Lamar homeless person in Power. It's like American.
So Tropic
like,
Thunder. Right.
Kinda. But like it's just Robert Downey Jr. Like no blackface like Tropic Thunder. Like it's just RDJ. Hell, put him in a suit, make him look like Tony Stark. Either way, that's really funny. What the ground I'm willing to give on the fan service and the grace and the time to cook, I'm willing to give the show before I write it off as the thing that annoys me in all anime that I've ever seen in my life. Is I think it might be metaphorical. I think, and again, we're kind of playing, we're playing in a weird pocket for me right now. I feel weirdly comfortable in, which is superhero media.
Yeah.
Because it's giving superhero origin story. It's like, and I don't know why that part of my brain is like got activated here. In the same way I wasn't expecting Evangelion to turn on the Joseph Campbell switch.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I think there's room for the way the aliens are taking advantage of Momo and the way that Ken is ambushed by Turbo Granny, that there's a commentary happening on puberty and sexuality. Mostly with Momo. With this whole idea that like the beginning of the episode is her rejecting advances from a partner. And her having to defend herself from unwanted advances. And then having to deal with the disappointment and heartbreak of, oh, this person who I really cared about tried to take advantage of me. And, tried to coerce me. And then we flash forward here, and the stakes are much higher. She has been sedated, she is bound, she has been stripped, and she is about to be, subjected to some amount of like psychokinesis and put to sleep and whatever, so that she can be artificially inseminated. And there's an element of like, oh, we're going to like use like some type of like telepathic manual seduction on you. I think there's room for there to be some type of commentary about the way that we sexualize young women from an early age. I think there's room for that. I think there's room for that to be something that was baked in here, in the same way that like the male approach to maturity and sexuality is also this kind of like hyper aggressive, like, let me put, like thing that's like happening with Turbo intro. Granny. You'll get demonetized if that's the intro. Once the channel gets monetized, you'll never get away with that one. These fuckers have to watch the episode to get to see me doing that. But happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to cede the ground that might be the intent. Because superhero media, especially with our teenage-powered people, there always tends to be an undercurrent of, like, pubescent development. And then there's, like, even when it's not explicit, even when it's not even necessarily intended, it is an undercurrent therein that I think is a meaningful interpretation of a lot of, like, superhero text, at least in a Western context. So, despite the fact that I found myself really uncomfortable with seeing this, 14, 15, 16-year-old girl.
She is in the second year of high school, so in Japan, I think that's 16, 17.
Okay. 16, 17-year-old in this very compromising position, drawn and presented in a way that I feel like is intentionally supposed to be suggestive beyond the fact that she's about to be artificially inseminated by a group of aliens. I think it's complicated. I think it's something that one has to be delicate with, not to make this much more serious than I have any right to compare it to quite yet. I think we kind of come back to the conversations that were happening around Andor this past season. I had a lot of opinions.
Drop those pearls.
Huh?
Just got to drop those pearls.
But my thing is, like I said with Andor, sexual violence is a thing that I'm always trepidatious about it being presented in media in any way. I think it is very easy to...
it's easy to mess it up, 100%.
It's easy to mess it up, and it's easy to make it a spectacle. And it's easy to make it a character beat. And I think DanDaDan is playing particularly with fire. Because you have that framing of, and now this little dorky guy is going to come through and save this girl he thinks is super attractive from school, and he's going to have his big hero moment trying to help her. Now, again, he opens the door for her, and then she does the rest of the heavy lifting with all of her telepathy, almost construct-y type powers that she gains. Again, I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I think it's complicated. I think there's something thematic and metaphorical going on here that I'm not quite ready to have I'm uncomfortable with how Asuka is dressed and framed conversation. I'm not ready to have My Hero Academia conversation quite yet of this inherently makes me uncomfortable, and I don't think this is responsible nor good. and it otherwise drags a great story down because it's here so aggressively. So I am going to withhold that specific criticism from me for now.
Well, if it goes nowhere.
If it goes nowhere, then I think I think that was wildly inappropriate. I think it was wildly inappropriate. I think you can go any number of ways of depicting aliens abducting a young girl to, you know, to spread their progeny. In a bajillion,
that's a hell of a way to put it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to avoid the word breed.
More the spread part. Just like
I think there are ways to avoid, you know, we want to impregnate this human being thing. There are ways to do that that are not like posing this girl the way they did and drawing her the way they did.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
You know, I truly, again, especially because like there's also something to be said for, again, the way the show is teed up, using kind of like visual language and trope and kind of like the anatomy of the art form. Characters like Momo are and like tend to be, unfortunately, sexual objects of our protagonist. And
what's really interesting,
while I'm getting the vibe that Momo and Ken are co-protagonists, there is still a default lens that this is going to be viewed through for, like, you know, oh, look at her like this. This is what Ken wants. Like, there's just a lot of subtext that is already really difficult and hard to maneuver when it's just like we're zooming in on this 17-year-old's bazongas, but now we're putting it in the context of like a scientific sexual assault, and that ratchets up the stakes and the framing for me to a point where I start to draw the line. I think this is a metaphor. I think this is thematic. And if I'm wrong, I have a lot of damning opinions about how an otherwise really good first episode ended.
That's fair. That's fair. I just have... We've had this conversation before, obviously, and everyone online's fucking talked about this scene ad nauseum. I fall on the side of obviously not defending the action, defending the inclusion. Right, like if you don't have these sorts of scenes and things, then it's not so much saying it's okay, but then you don't get that. Like you get everything else in stories and media, right? Like, oh, fascism bad, like that's totally fine. Genocide bad, that's totally fine. But this, don't talk about that. You're gonna, you know, it's a bit like the Voldemort situation, to bring up a franchise I don't like. But you know, you don't, not saying its name gives it the power and all that sort of angle. Like not showing it gives it more power than it should. I also think with this, the way it's framed, it's never sexualizing her despite her being in her underwear. The point, I brought this up when we had Scotty on for Evangelion. It's the angles you're looking. It's the framing and the cinematography of the whole thing, right? You're seeing it from certain angles. Like a lot of the time when it's her, it's over the shoulder. So you're seeing it from her perspective. And when it's the really messed up stuff, it's from theirs. Like they're not inherently sexualizing her at all. That's just my stance on it.
So my rebuttal to that, it's kind of multi-pronged. First of all, the nasty stuff happening from the alien's perspective, I think, is inherently the problem. Because that is That's the fair. Moment where she gets sexualized. Inherently. When the objective is, we are like, our goal is to impregnate you because our species, for whatever reason, is predominantly male. Or entirely male.
Well, it might not be impregnating.
Well, that's what they said.
No, they want the banana. They want her banana organs.
Okay, we are all males, and therefore we need your banana. I think leaves things pretty up, not super up to interpretation.
I mean, sure, but it could be taking it out. No.
Sure. Either way,
Not that it's any better.
either
But,
way, it's
it's-
still here's this teenager in her underwear, strapped down,
sure.
in a very compromising position. The way she's drawn, it looks like her bra is about to fall off. The way it's like eking over her shoulder, like almost touching her
It doesn't
bicep.
start off that way though. Like Fame, Cowboy Bebop, when those things start bouncing, that's just the way she's struggling. It's just what happens.
Sure, either way, but again, and that leads to my second point: genre convention. I think that in media, in certain genres, in certain like flavors of genre, like I hate when we talk in popular culture call them like superhero a genre. I think that's incredibly
Yeah,
reductive.
yeah.
I don't think that works. But for lack of a better term, the
It's better than saying the comic book genre, but yeah.
yeah, the superhero pantheon, the genre conventions that come with that. You can have everything from Guardians of the Galaxy to the fucking Dark Knight. There are still genre conventions that are true across both of those stories, right? And with like the shonen action anime genre conventions and how wide an umbrella that itself is.
Mm-hmm.
That in theory includes everything from Evangelion to fucking Dragon Ball, like all of those things. The genre convention of the hypersexualized young girl or young woman to teenage girl, that is baked in the same way that like anytime a superhero is stopping a crime, it's kind of framed the same way, be it a car chase or a bank robbery. There's this moment of like thrilling, I am here, da da da, so like it would be wildly inappropriate for there to be a da da da, I'm stopping the bank robbers type framing to Superman, stopping an attempted sexual assault. Let's look at the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. We all love the upside down kiss. Everything that happens before that, I think, is kind of irresponsibly framed and written and shot. I think that there was an argument to be made.
That again? I can't remember.
Mary Jane almost getting gang raped.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And that's its own conversation about how we write these things and how we put them on screen. It's part of why the Andor Bix Kayleen sexual assault thing, I think there was a lot of conversation worth happening there, because in terms of genre convention and what is expected and how our brains are wired to engage with certain pieces of media, I think it's really hard to take a scene like this, where this girl is framed in such a way and is put in such a position, for it to not be, even by association with other media, sexualizing. And that is before we even get to the nature of it being sexual violence already. And why, like I said before with Andor, I think there are some pretty visceral moments in that scene that you can skip over. Again, I said in our review, and I said whenever the episode first came out, I think you can very easily skip over the part where the Imperial officer is dragging Bix to the bed. I think that part is just inherently, I think, and again, maybe it's arbitrary. It's super arbitrary, and this is mileage may vary conversations. I don't necessarily think there is a simple right or wrong answer here. I think there are varying degrees of tasteful and irresponsible, and
that's fair.
so like I think you don't need that really visceral moment where Bix is getting dragged to the bed. I think if you cut between shots of her and the Imperial officer duking it out, we come back to the part where Bix just bing with a hydro spanner, and then he staggers out into the field, and she says he tried to rape me, and then she shoots the other Imperial. I think that's great. That scene where she's being dragged, I think that's a bit too much. Same way here. I think there are ways you can get across the exact thing you're trying to do without Momo being fucking naked. And I'm not a prude. I am not here to be like, I'm not one of these Gen Z kids who are like, take the sex scenes out of movies and stuff. I like that. That's not what I'm here for. It's just when it is consistently with girls and like elder teenagers that I am like, this is fucking excessive and gross.
But at the same time, it's always going to be girls in everything, Western or Eastern, because they're the ones it happens to the most.
Of course.
So that's no matter what, that's always going to happen.
There is a choice by the creator.
I mean, sure,
as to how it is presented.
Sure.
Again, I am fully prepared to give this show the grace and the space to develop this as a theme, to develop the gaining of the powers as a metaphor for puberty and pubescence and maturing, and again, the way that sexuality is kind of like brutishly forced onto, boys and girls in different ways, but the end result is you kind of come of age with the expectation of some amount of like wanton hedonism. That is kind of the default setting of, hey boy, you want to be a sex machine? And hey girl, we have you bound and stripped and we're going to extract from you what we want. I can understand if that is a commentary being made. I understand what they're going for. If it's not, I really don't like the scene.
Do you know what I find really interesting though? Just then you went, hey boy, do you want to be a sex machine? And then you went into the bit about Momo. You're not looking at the two incidents in the exact same way.
No, I because one is way more visceral than the other.
Sure.
One is way more visceral than the other.
That's fair.
And problematically, the stuff with Ken is played for a laugh. Because I think it's hard to not find a random demon in a tunnel saying the word dong to you kind of inherently funny. That is played comically, and that's problematic in its own way. I'm mostly focusing on the topic of discussion that has been one that has come up repeatedly throughout Pro and Noob. The only time we have not had this conversation discussing something was Clone Wars and Princess Mononoke. That's fucking it.
Yeah. Mm.
Other than that, we are like...
That's 40% of this show. Like, that's not horrendous.
Not horrendous, and again, like I said, if I don't like feet and blood, I shouldn't be watching Quentin Tarantino.
Mm.
But Pulp Fiction is my third favorite movie of all time. So here we are. That's it's baked into it as a genre convention. Mm. But so many of my opinions, considering her age and the circumstance, I find the genre convention to be something that is quite damning. Again, I'm willing to give the show the grace to do what I think it's going for. But like I said, and yes, the Ken stuff I think is also a manifestation of that. There's also something to be said. I'm about to get real, the friend who's too woke here for a second. I think there's also room for a conversation about patriarchy and men's role in the sexualization of men and men's expectations in terms of maturity and sexuality. We can have a conversation about how if a male gym teacher is flirting and having a sexual relationship with a minor student, that we all clutch our pearls and go, that is horrendous and that's evil. And we should be clutching our pearls and saying that's horrendous and evil. But if it's a 16, 17-year-old guy and, an English teacher, like a female English teacher, then there's this weird societal oh yeah, dude, look at you go. Yeah, he likes his MILFs. And that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. Culturally, societally, that is repulsive. But I also think that is also something that's happening here a little bit too. And again, I think that might be the point. Ken is fucking terrified and is petrified by what happened. The fact that he has to literally go back and reclaim his manhood from the monster in the tunnel that took it from him, I think is a pretty open and clear rape allegory.
Yeah.
That this young boy has to go reclaim his manhood after being assaulted. I don't think it's that subtle. We're getting back to the First Order banner looks like a fucking swastika levels of, subtlety got shot in the back of the head in a dark alley. the, I don't want to discount the stuff with Ken, and you're right. I'm focusing more on the Momo stuff because it's more in line with the conversations we've had about this specific phenomena within anime.
Yeah.
But I do think I think the Ken thing proves my point too. That like I think this is an allegory of, or this is allegorical and a metaphor for the way that like teens experience sex and sexuality as they mature and how it's kind of foisted upon them in ways that are not exactly consensual. And that's my take on the big scene that apparently the rest of the internet has a lot of big opinions about.
Oh, I think this came out in October of 24 and you just couldn't get away from it. You could not get away. My TikTok was just people fighting backwards and forwards.
What was the nature of the conversation? Like, because I can't look into
exactly what we just had.
Okay.
Exactly what we just had. I saw a really good TikTok and I liked it to keep it. And then I can't find it because I have too many likes on TikTok now. But it really went over the framing of everything and how it's not actually sexualizing and saying it. There's something about saying it is sexualizing it in that way is just as much of a problem. I cannot for the life of me think what the rest of that argument was.
There's truth to that. And I agree that just Momo being in her underwear in a compromising position, inherently being sexual, I think is problematic.
Because I don't think the show does anything in any way, even though despite it doing the classic, like, oh, look, it's the fan service shot, it doesn't glorify the position she's in whatsoever. There's not a single point where the show like stops and holds on the shot and goes like, look at how hot this teenager is. It's a constant like, this scene is fucked up. She's in a horrific situation. It never takes a moment to ever give off the impression, at least for me, that it's a fan service shot or a fan service scene.
And again, I think it's important to reiterate for anybody at home, your mileage will vary.
100%. Yeah. I'm not going to say anyone's wrong. Like, I'm not going to say you're wrong to think the way you are. It's certainly up to you. It's your prerogative. I'm just saying for me, like, but I do think there are parts of the people that watch anime and see something like that do go way overboard and completely miss the part, like the point of a scene or the point of a shot.
Sure. And I hear that and I empathize with that. I think also part of it is
it's born from the fact that anime has done it the wrong way.
Exactly. That's what I'm getting at, the genre convention angle. Is that like, I think that so much of an ability to engage with complex themes like this, like what is being tackled in that scene, a lot of goodwill has been burnt because of the way that women are presented in anime. Like that is a genre convention, that is a genre pitfall, is just an inevitability. That like, it doesn't matter how much you try to not glorify that. You know, it's like, again, to make another Western comparison, let's go back to 2019 with fucking Joker for a minute. The very act of Arthur Fleck being the protagonist muddies the waters for what the film is trying to say. And that is and that is simply because of like conventional presentation of character. More often than not, if you are the main character, there is an assumption of correctness, be it ideologically, morally, in terms of perspective, whatever. Now, the movie also doesn't do itself any favors because the Joker has no fucking ideology and the movie doesn't have any ideology. But,
nor does the director.
You know, but if the end goal is what I think they were going for, which was, you know, Arthur's violent hedonism is bad and that he is finding excuses for bad. He's finding excuses that I can do the math on for him for bad behavior that is unacceptable. We still have the issue of the way it's presented. simply by virtue, look at Fight Club, look at, how
Yeah,
many
yeah.
American Psycho, how many stories do people have such a hard time understanding and appreciating what they're going for? Even people who are willing to engage with the text because of certain genre conventions, because of certain conventions with how things are presented, that it inherently muddies the water. I think that's a similar thing here. That because anime is an art form, has burned the goodwill of taking any woman in any position ever being immediately and like hyperbolically beyond any understanding sexualized, that it's really hard to take the scene for what it's trying to do at face value. Even if that is not the intent, the presentation is still damning. And that and because of the genre, and because I the noob, let us not let the name of the show be forgotten for the blanket statement I'm about to make. I look forward to being proven wrong. I have not seen a lot of anime. I have not been exposed to a lot of anime that has ever done the work to disprove that hypothesis. I have not seen a lot of anime where the main woman in the show is not presented as a bombshell smoke show who, for whatever reason, at all times chooses to be mostly naked. And that does not go out of its way to have moments where she inexplicably puts on a more scantily revealing article of clothing that then is zoomed in on, hyper focused on, hypersexualized, and then we have all the guys go about it, and then that's all we had to say about it. Like, because that is a genre convention,
you don't
is
get
so hard to get past.
You maybe get one scene of that in Evangelion. To that extent.
I mean, even then, again, it's an agree to disagree thing. I do think some of the stuff with Asuka is egregious. Like, again, I think it is, whether or not Arno wanted to have like some type of meta commentary, the execution of, oh yeah, Asuka stayed 17, so it's just that 17-year-old body we're all looking at all the time still, like, it's a lot,
You get like 32-year-old Asuka, it's fine.
Like we're still making decisions as the people making this story and how things are presented and framed. Like we could see Asuka's butt crack through her fucking Ava suit because there's a weird butt crack window. Like stuff like that. I think it is something that's been a hang up for me. Again, just to bring this conversation home, I think there is intent. I think there was meaningful intent behind the presentation here. If I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong about that, and I really don't like it, but I'm willing to give it the space to do what it's doing. Other than that, I really fucking like the show without question. There's nothing else up for debate, and I liked it.
That's good to hear. So the week leading up to this, I was like, right, if he says he doesn't want to watch the rest, it's like, give me 7 episodes. Was my plan. I was like, give me 7, and then we'll see. But I've not got that impression, so the offer's off.
Like I said, I'm willing to let it cook. I'm willing to see thematically where the show develops. I think it called its shot pretty loudly. And if I'm wrong, then, sometimes maybe the curtains were just blue and I media analyzed too close to the sun. But I don't think I have, and I think these wings are pretty solid currently.
I mean, that's what Icarus thought as well. I will say, I will give you a warning.
Yeah.
It's not the last time.
Oh, I had a feeling.
Not to this extent. We'll get to the one that I have a slight problem with when we get to it. But this is not even slight spoilers. it does eventually, quite quickly, stop for a long time with this show. Or with the manga, anyway. There's a long period of time where there is nothing like that whatsoever.
Okay.
But early days, there are at least one I think is really rough. But that's that. Is there anything else?
I'm excited to see what's up with this cat. If I have one other gripe that it's
if you
almost
dare say it's about her friends, we are going to have a massive problem.
no, not that
Good.
necessarily. I mean, it's, I've never met a single person who speaks that way, but also I love Star Wars, so who the fuck am I?
Uncultured, that's who you are.
That's like my, hold on, what's the, let me see if I can find it. It is the infamous,
I'm slightly concerned.
it is the infamous line of dialogue from A New Hope that got cut.
Oh, I remember.
That I know most of it, but I can never remember the order of it. I'm trying to get it. Okay. Because Mark Hamill in every behind the scenes documentary of Star Wars loves to recite this line because he still has it memorized. But we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquila or Cellist, and what it is there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. Unreadable fucking dialogue. I am never, I am not going to complain that much about no children have ever talked that way, ever. But Aquila or Cellist, who am I to judge? No, it is.
You say that, it's really funny because they talk exactly how I remember the kids in school talking. They also act the same.
Before I continue what I was saying, can I say something really damning that might just destroy everybody's opinion of me real quick? I kind of love that line, though. I kind of love that line.
What, the Luke line?
Yeah. I kind of love it. Yeah, I love it because it is ridiculous. But
you literally police people who don't like Star Wars. People aren't surprised that you like a Star Wars line. I defend Dave Filoni once, and this man tries to recruit me. No.
Yeah, because you're finally starting to see the light.
No.
If there's one thing I have a gripe with, that again, I don't care that much about. I just think it's wild. And I think, again, it's one of those things that, if anything that wasn't an anime did this, it would never make it past the first episode. How quickly Ken and Momo just become best friends, I think is buck wild. The way that it takes so little for them to both be like,
it's trauma bonding.
And this is my exact character arc. This is who I am entirely. Would never fucking fly in any other piece of media. Ever. Any other live action TV show, movie would get crucified. For 2 hours earlier, you guys were viciously bullying each other, taking the piss. And now a couple hours later, you are fully I just wish the aliens would come and take me because nobody wanted me here. Mostly unprovoked. There are people in the real world
Momo's unprovoked, sure. I think with Ken is a bit more of a provocation to spout that off. Especially
but his is so much more extreme. I think there is a natural crescendo to my grandma's a medium and she was really into this stuff and I wasn't really into it, but like she did the things she asked of me and I got bullied for it. And then I realized, you know what? I'm not upset that I'm getting bullied. I'm upset that you're talking shit about my grandma. And that really fucks me off. Like to crescendo that into everybody hates me and it's just what the aliens take me is fucking crazy. That is some military grade scare in the hose shit. And
that's just Ken. He's enough, okay? Ken. He's just Ken.
But yeah, I just thought that was buck wild and that would never fly in anything else. But anime gets a pass because of how hyper realized it is. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm just saying wild.
I mean, anime's a speak even a thing in Japan. Japanese people don't talk like that.
People in the real world don't say shit like, but we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquila or Sullust, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault.
Everything in DanDaDan is more believable than that line. At least they use real words. Even the aliens who don't know what
a banana actually is. Luke is talking about Sullust. Is there a version of the script when they went to Sullust? That's not important.
We're losing him.
Either way.
I don't know if that's my camera going wrong. Wow, that was a hell of a camera.
But
you stopped here for like 10 seconds and it all sped up.
Oh, I love when that happens. But yeah, we'll see where this goes, but it has piqued my interest.
So we are doing this in arcs. Not that this episode is going to be an arc, because this is just the introduction to the show for Jarod. But the next will be the rest of the Turbo Granny arc, and then we're going to go on from there, chunk by chunk by chunk. For season 2, I don't know what we're going to do and how we're going to handle it. Probably going to be episode by episode, but
yeah,
we shall see. So do all the fun stuff like comment, subscribe, go follow Jarod over on the Nerd Academy podcast. Don't follow Jarod after doing that on the Nerd Academy podcast.
You should. And
just go watch him lose trivia on Star Wars and the Galaxy. Epic confrontations. Remember his, it's going to be a bomb burner. That line.
I've never heard you do a fucking American accent. That's so good. And for the record, I called it a barn burner after it was taped because it was a barn burner.
Sure, but the echolalia has kept you saying barn burner in my head this entire time. I need to say it. I need to bring that up.
Can Keep you that in the chamber. One more time with your American accent?
No, I can't. I can't do it on command.
I'm gonna keep thinking about you going barn burner.
I wasn't even trying to do it. I didn't think I was trying to do it.
You went from Benedict Cumberbatch at the beginning of Doctor Strange and ended as Captain Barbossa.
Captain Barbossa. Oh, yeah.
Jeffrey Rush's character in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I can see it, yeah.
You can start believing in ghost stories, Miss Swan. You're in one,
Classic line. Classic.
Mitch, by chance, do you happen to remember any Atten?
I can't even remember what. Oh, of course, yeah, Atten, yeah. I actually struggled to think what the fuck that was. Just like, what the fuck is Atten?
See, you did it right there. What the fuck is that Atten? That's just the Andor version of SM-33 that goes, what the fuck is some Atten?
American accents are funny.
You're just like,
there's only one. No.
You're lucky I don't have like an actual thick Pittsburgh accent. I would be impossible to listen to.
You're lucky I don't have the accent where I'm from.
You ever hear
everyone always says you don't sound like that because everyone else talks like that. It's just like, oh. The amount of times I've been called posh in my lifetime is horrendous. It's like, sorry, I don't even enunciate anything. It's like cataclysm. There's no T. in that word for me. Butter. Yeah.
What a wonderful episode we've made.
It really is.
It really is. So some may not even be able to tell that it was recorded within 24 hours of each other.
Oh, you ruined the illusion.
At the very end, it's their reward for watching the whole time.
So yes, we have worn the same clothes for 2 days in a row.
I didn't. I changed after I came home from what I had to do today.
I see, now you've ruined the illusion again. It's two
and I'm going to put on a different shirt when I record Nerd Academy in an hour.
So we'll catch you next
here
week.
on Pro and Noob can you find out the way everything is taped. Yeah. Sometimes for fun for people who watch all the things I do, I will wear the same shirt all day so that people can tell exactly when I recorded shit. And then other times
I do that all the time.
Other times I don't. Other times I do change just to be a little scamp.
It's true because we're back to back and he's changed and I haven't. So it makes it look even funnier.
That's way funnier.
I think I even called it out.
When I went to go do stuff earlier today, I put on my little Troopers Roosevelt. And then when I came home, I was like, I got to put on the pink one to maintain continuity so that at the end of the episode, I can destroy continuity.
I was going to bring up a point and I completely forgot what it was.
I apologize.
No, it's my own fault. What was it? No, it's gone. It's gone. Anyway, we'll catch you next week. So, bye. Boom, boom.